The Marvel Universe is full of danger around every turn. In all corners of the globe, there are any number of villains plotting ways that they can destroy and conquer and subjugate, but thankfully there are always enough heroes around to foil their various schemes. But sometimes it isn't that complicated. On occasion, there is no evil mastermind or any sort of complex plan. Sometimes the danger in question is a big monster. And the solution to that big monster is to shoot it in the face. This is when you call Elsa Bloodstone. Elsa Bloodstone is a very simple character at a foundational level. She is a monster hunter. She doesn't have a headquarters or a million gadgets or even a superhero costume really. She has a lot of guns and a lot of training and a little bit of magic, and that is all she needs to get the job done. Of course, nothing in comic books is ever that simple, not on the level of deep diving that I do for this channel. I always manage to dig up something weird, and believe me, I checked that box today. But the weirdness is not the reason I have chosen this specific topic to release today. No, as I'm sure many of you have already guessed, the reason I'm talking about Elsa Bloodstone right now is that she is, as of today, the newest character added to the roster of Marvel Rivals. That means that a lot of people are going to be going to YouTube wanting to find out what her whole deal is. So if you're a Marvel Rivals player looking for context on the new character, a comic book fan wanting to find something new to read, or you already know who Elsa is and you know the levels of chaos I'm going to be getting into, let's just go ahead and begin. Without further ado, let's talk about Marvel's monster hunter, Elsa Bloodstone. Though, I guess one tiny bit of further ado, because before we can talk about Elsa specifically, we need to spend a little bit of time on her father, Ulysses Bloodstone. Ulysses has appeared in far fewer comics than Elsa has, but he is the one who began the Bloodstone monster hunting legacy, and he'll be relevant later, so he deserves a couple of minutes. The Elder Bloodstone is an old character in more ways than one. First off, his origin story comic was released in 1975, so he's decently old in publication terms, and in terms of in-universe stuff, well, canonically, Ulysses Bloodstone was born over 10,000 years ago. His history is relatively straightforward. Before taking on the name Ulysses Bloodstone, he was a primitive hunter in Scandinavia around the year 8000 BC. One day, a meteor crashed to the ground near his tribe, and he went to investigate. This meteor was actually a magical crystal called the Blood Gem, which was made by elder gods from another dimension who then sent the gem to Earth so that it would terraform reality into a twisted hellscape that the gods could then conquer and populate. And also, the gem contained a monster named Hellfire Helix, and Hellfire Helix summons an arcane force called the Exomind, and then the Exomind gets another magical monster servant called Ulixil Quantasin, and Ulixil lures the human hunter who found the meteor into his underground citadel and offers to give him magical powers using the Blood Gem if he helps subjugate humanity, but the hunter refuses and instead shatters the gem, which explodes and sends magic shards all over the planet, and one of them gets embedded in the hunter's chest, and that's what the red crystal on Ulysses is. So a second ago, when I said his history was relatively straightforward, I was lying. Yeah, the history of Ulysses Bloodstone is batshit insane, and all of that I just bombarded you with takes place over like 2 or 3 comics, so the speed was accurate. Good news, none of it really matters at all. The only part that you actually have to process is that Ulysses Bloodstone was a primitive hunter who got a bit of a magic crystal embedded in his chest, and that's kinda it. This crystal, which would go on to be called both the Bloodstone and the Blood Gem, the two names are kind of used interchangeably, increased the physical capabilities of the hunter and also stopped his aging. So he dedicated his new power and long life to hunting monsters like the ones he had already encountered. At some point along the way, he took on the name Ulysses Bloodstone, integrated himself more into modern society, and closer to the present, had a daughter named Elsa. Elsa's first appearance was in a self-titled miniseries simply called Bloodstone that released in 2001. The concept for Bloodstone is very straightforward, but also kind of difficult to describe for reasons that will become apparent later. See, in Ulysses' last appearance, he had actually died after all those thousands of years. The Bloodstone chunk was removed from his chest, and when that happened, his body reverted to its natural age, which was pretty much just dust. Bloodstone issue 1 follows directly up on Ulysses' death, opening on Elsa and her mother flying to his estate. We don't learn too much about Elsa's mom here, but we do learn enough about the Bloodstone family dynamic. Elsa's parents had apparently split up when she was pretty young, so she was raised not really knowing her father and not knowing about his profession. Her mom, though, did know about all the monster hunting and wanted to keep Elsa very far away from it, which of course was not going to happen. As Elsa is exploring Bloodstone Manor, she accidentally runs into the area's caretaker, who is like a Frankenstein's monster guy. He might actually be Frankenstein's monster. He goes by the name Adam in this book, but this is clearly an alias and his origins are never fully explained. Adam used to help out Ulysses with his monster hunting endeavors and is very excited to get to pass that down to the next generation, so he bestows Elsa with 2 items. First off, a magical choker that contains another chunk of Bloodstone, which provides Elsa with powers similar to her father's, and secondly, a magic genie lamp which can instantly teleport her to any monster-based danger. This is pretty much all you need to know for the remainder of the Bloodstone comic. Elsa has powers, she has her sort of mentor figure in Adam, and the genie lamp lights up whenever a monster is threatening people somewhere out in the world. So then Elsa just wishes on the lamp, goes there, fights the monster, and is teleported back to Bloodstone Manor. Like I said, very straightforward concept, but I do enjoy it. The best way that I can describe the original Bloodstone comic is that it has a lot of Saturday morning cartoon energy to it. You have a cool teen girl protagonist who just got superpowers, fighting literal monster of the week villains, all while trying to keep those adventures secret from her mom, who does not want her daughter going on the same path as her father. It is simple, but it is fun. It is by no means a perfect book. The artist really likes drawing this teen girl in ways that teen girls probably should not be drawn, but aside from that, I do like it. The comic was really self-contained. It only ran for 4 issues and was barely connected to any other Marvel things, with the only other Marvel characters appearing being classic monsters like Dracula and the Living Mummy. Decent and enjoyable as the book was, it didn't go anywhere, and Elsa as a character would not be seen for another 5 years. And then in 2006, this is where things are going to go extremely off the rails. I didn't talk much about Elsa's personality in Bloodstone because there wasn't much of a need to. If you have in your brain superpowered teen girl from an early 2000s Saturday morning cartoon, yeah, she was pretty much exactly the type of character that you're thinking of. But in her next appearance, she would look and act very different. This would be in a comic called NEXTWAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA Wave. Maybe I just begin by showing you all the cover of Next Wave Issue 1. Next Wave, full title Next Wave Agents of Hate, hate being an acronym, has this very iconic cover to it, and the tagline under the group shot of the heroes reads, "Healing America by beating people up." And that's just going to set the tone for everything going forward. HATE in this book stands for Highest Anti-Terrorism Effort, a SHIELD-like organization, though one that is smaller and less effective. Next Wave is a team of 5 superhumans who operate as HATE's best strike squad. The roster is a mix of characters you've probably heard of and some you probably haven't, being from right to left, Elsa Bloodstone, Machine Man, Monica Rambeau, Boom Boom, and the Captain. Just the Captain. I'll be addressing his name briefly later. The plot, in air quotes, of Next Wave is that in issue 1, the team discovers that Hate, unsurprisingly based on the name, is actually evil, and are all in the pocket of a worse organization called the Beyond Corporation. Then the rest of the book is just Next Wave fighting off the evil plans of Hate and the Beyond Corporation, which vary wildly in range and tone. The reason I put plot in air quotes there is that Next Wave can best be described as less of a storyline and more 10 billion bits that have been roughly smushed into the form of a comic book series. It is not a bad book. It can be very enjoyable if you know what you're getting into. It is just patently insane. As one of my friends very well put it, if the original Bloodstone had a lot of Saturday morning cartoon energy, Next Wave also has cartoon energy, just definitely not one that airs on Saturday mornings. I'm not going to go into all the details of Next Wave in this video as much as I'm sure some of you want me to, because A, this is a video about Elsa Bloodstone specifically, and B, I do not want this video getting demonetized. Fortunately, for context on Elsa's storyline, all you really need to know about Next Wave is the tone that it took, and so enjoy this montage of just a scattering of some of Next Wave's bits. Monica Rambeau kills a puppy. Fin Fang Foom puts someone into his pants. Skateboarding mindless ones. West Side Story mindless ones. Giant anime robot with a realistic gun. The captain's real superhero codename is Captain F***. The villain's minions are made of broccoli. A celestial calls Machine Man a piece of shit. Death koalas. Homicide crabs. Off-brand Dormammu in a gas station bathroom. A villain team called The Homosexuality. 12 consecutive pages of fight montage with no dialogue, and Devil Dinosaur is the final twist villain. Also, Baby MODOK is a thing. There's a Baby MODOK in this, and there's a whole scene that confirms Captain America's pee has traces of super soldier serum in it, but then that literally never matters again in the rest of the comic. And also, there's... Sorry, what was I doing again? Oh, Elsa Bloodstone video. Right, let's get back to that. Okay, so with that done, and keep in mind, that was without jokes that I had to cut for content rating, we all should have a better idea of what Next Wave was like. And in addition to it being a non-stop barrage of varying quality jokes, it also had a very weird relationship with Marvel canon, which is that it didn't really have a relationship with Marvel canon at all. The core roster of Next Wave was not made of new characters. The only one to debut in this comic was the Captain, and all the others had years to decades of their own history. Yet, Next Wave really never cared about what they were previously, portraying some of the characters as parodies of themselves, and portraying Elsa as just a 100% separate thing. You might have picked up already that Elsa Bloodstone looks completely different in the pages of Next Wave, or maybe more accurately, she looked completely different in the original Bloodstone series. This way that she's portrayed in this comic is how she's looked going forward. But it doesn't appear to be the same character from the previous series at all, at least not visually. No explanation is given for her design shift. She is still Elsa Bloodstone, still a monster hunter, and still the daughter of Ulysses Bloodstone. And actually, those are pretty much the only things that remain the same about her character. Elsa has a backstory flashback in Next Wave, and it is entirely different to how the previous book portrayed it. As established in this comic, she was actively trained by her father to carry on the legacy, and was trained from a very young age. Like, Ulysses would literally throw her into pits when she was a baby to do battle with gigantic monsters. Throwing even more confusion onto this pile, even in the flashbacks to her childhood, Elsa is very distinctly a redhead, which is completely different than the blonde that she had in Bloodstone. As will be a pattern, this is never explained. Next Wave just took Elsa, called her Elsa, and made her someone entirely different. Of course, we are dealing with superhero comics, and especially superhero comics that are weird, kind of disconnected parody, so there's an easy explanation for this. Is Next Wave just an alternate universe? I mean, if everybody's different and it takes a distinctly more comedic and more adult tone, it could be dismissed as an AU. That's complicated. That's complicated. We are going to be coming back to that once again, but for now, no. For now, Next Wave was not intended to be an alternate universe story. This was in the main Marvel universe as far as people knew at the time, and everyone was just different because of no reason that was ever shown. Unsurprisingly, due to its controversial tone and jokes, and also its more controversial approach to canon, Next Wave was met with mixed reviews by comic book readers. However, one part of the comic that was not met with mixed reviews and was generally liked was the character of Elsa Bloodstone. Next Wave brings us the personality that we see in later media. This new Elsa is 10 times more badass. They have completely abandoned her characterization as a kind of stock Saturday morning cartoon teen girl action hero, and now she has a billion guns, and she's perpetually annoyed, and she's way more British than she was, and also she curses like a sailor, and everyone loved her. This new Elsa was so popular that she just kinda stuck around. When Next Wave ended, the other characters who had been turned into parodies were more or less returned to their older status quos, but not Elsa. She just remained like this, and this is the iteration of her character that we will see going forward. Does this cast a lot of confusion onto which backstory is real, given that both comics are supposedly canon? Yes, but that's largely what I'm going to be addressing for the rest of this video. Now, for my usual video structure, this would be the point after I've talked about the character's origin, or in Elsa's case, origins, where I do a breakdown of the character's abilities and powers. However, Elsa has another point in her timeline which throws a lot of confusion onto that, so we're just going to continue down her chronology for now, which is relatively straightforward. And this time, I'm not lying about that, it actually will be, I promise. After Next Wave just kind of waved its magical little hand and turned Elsa into a different character that people liked more, she remained in the Marvel Universe as a monster hunter. I promised this pretty clearly in the intro, but Elsa is not complicated at a conceptual level. She will appear most frequently when other characters are fighting monsters and need some sort of help or assistance in that pursuit. Elsa's next major appearance would be in the miniseries Legion of Monsters, which focused on a team of Marvel's classic monster-style characters, most importantly in this case, Jack Russell, the werewolf by night, and Morbius. This comic was about the monstrous heroes trying to establish Monster Metropolis, which was a network of tunnels underneath New York City that, as the name implies, housed a civilization of monsters. Importantly to note going forward, not everything that we would consider a monster in the Marvel Universe is evil. Several of them are sentient creatures that don't want to cause people any harm, but are often attacked because, well, they look like big scary monsters. The hope of Morbius and Jack and the others was that Monster Metropolis would be a safe place for these benign and often helpful monstrous beings. And then of course Elsa got involved in that and had some disagreements. She ends up teaming up with the heroes, though somewhat reluctantly, to uncover the source of a demonic virus which is infecting the good monsters and turning them evil. Her inclusion here shouldn't need a lot of explanation. The whole bit was that there was a team of monster heroes, and there was a monster hunter on the roster just to add an interesting bit of contrast. Her next several appearances keep up the pattern. Elsa teams up with Wolverine, she briefly joins the Defenders, she helps out the Avengers, all under the same general circumstances. If there is a monster that needs shooting, Elsa will probably appear. She is never a protagonist and doesn't get a lot of personal character development, but she is a distinct and fun enough character that audiences usually like it when she shows up for a couple of issues. This was the simple but effective status quo that Elsa Bloodstone held until 2015 in, of all things, the Secret Wars event, specifically the Secret Wars Marvel Zombies miniseries. Now, I do briefly need to go into how the Secret Wars crossover worked as context for anyone who might not know, but I will keep it from becoming a whole tangent. The multiverse gets destroyed. Doctor Doom, though, is able to save tiny chunks of it from different realities and squishes them all together into one big planet called Battleworld. On Battleworld, the different realities preserve their core elements. 2099 is still cyberpunk, the Monarchy of M from the House of M event is still ruled by mutants, etc., but all of them occupy the same space and basically function like different nations do in the real world, interacting with each other and having diplomatic relations. This means that there are different variants of the same people on this one planet, which creates some interesting situations, but situations that everyone here kind of just dismisses. They dismiss it so easily because they do not remember their previous existence. When Doom smushed this planet together, he made himself God Emperor and essentially brainwashed everybody so that they didn't remember existence previously. Now, at the bottom of Battle World, there are a couple regions separated from the others by a massive structure known as the Shield. These areas below the Shield are the bad universes, things where Ultron took over, for example, and now the area is full of drones that cannot be allowed to spread. As you might be able to guess, one of these regions is the Marvel Zombies world. The Zombies Battle World miniseries focuses on this region through the eyes of Elsa Bloodstone, who in the mixed up Battle World reality is a commander of the Wall's defenses. In issue 1, she gets into a fight with a zombified Azazel, and he teleports her during the combat way out into the Deadlands, where she has to fight her way back. This book is very good, and it's significant because it is the first book since 2001 where Elsa is the protagonist. Sure, it's not titled Bloodstone, but she is undeniably the main character. Here's the thing though, those of you who know how Secret Wars works might be a little bit confused as to why I'm bringing it up and giving it so much attention, because it doesn't typically matter to canon. As I've mentioned already, everyone on Battleworld had different histories and memories because they were overwritten by Doom, and more importantly, after Battleworld was undone and the multiverse was restored back to its original state, or at least close to it, most of the things in Battleworld did not carry over. No characters from Battleworld remember the events there, save for a couple select few who were right at the center of it. To the general public of the Marvel Universe, and even most heroes and villains, this never happened. There is no evidence of it whatsoever. But Elsa is a weird exception. See, Marvel Zombies Battle World is very much a character study for Elsa Bloodstone, sort of filling in the gaps in her history of the next wave version of the character. The series has a lot of flashbacks to Elsa's childhood, and through these, we get a really good picture of why she is the way she is now. In this version of her history, Elsa was still trained by her father and still thrown into the deep end of monster hunting by him at a very young age. But rather than kind of making a joke out of this, like NEXTWAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA Ulysses in this era is shown as a man solely dedicated to his monster hunting, viewing it as his singular purpose. And Elsa is going to be raised to continue that purpose once Ulysses is gone, whether she wants to be or not. We see an extremely young Elsa forced to fight hordes of monsters on her own, sometimes getting gravely wounded, which her father doesn't seem to care about. We see her dragged along on Ulysses' expeditions at great danger to herself. Ulysses purely sees his daughter as an extension of his own will, and on the rare occasions that Elsa has the power to stand up to him, well, he does view that as a positive, but not in a healthy way. There is a very powerful scene where after Ulysses has been yelling at Elsa out in the freezing snow, she finally musters the courage to whisper, "I hate you" at him, and Ulysses' response is, "That's the first impressive thing you've said all day, now move." This comic even provides an explanation for why Elsa's hair color changed originally. Granted, the timelines don't perfectly match up, so it doesn't answer every question, but whatever, it is more context than we had, and even something as simple as a change of hair is wildly sad. According to this, Elsa's hair was naturally blonde when she was a kid, but during one of Ulysses' training exercises, she took too long to kill a monster and did it in a way that was too messy for her father's liking. Over the course of the fight, she got this monster's cursed blood all over her head and scalp, and Ulysses says, quote, "You took 10 seconds too long and have Klipoff blood in your hair. Not a promising first kill, Elsa. You will not wash nor shave until it has infected your scalp. You will wear its color as a badge of your inadequacy, and you will lie to your mother about how you got it." So that's why Elsa's hair is red now. Her scalp was permanently dyed by monster blood, and her father intentionally let that fester so she would have a reminder of her inadequacies. And this arc isn't even over. Young Elsa did go to her mom about it because the stuff was literally burning her, and when her mom found out what was going on, she confronted Ulysses about it. which led Ulysses Bloodstone to infect his wife with brain-eating magical parasites so that he could frame her for being insane and abusive and get her arrested so that she wouldn't interrupt Elsa's training. Holy shit! So now, after a decade and a half of being largely a stock Monster Hunter character, Elsa Bloodstone has a real backstory and her personality becomes a lot more compelling. The reason that adult Elsa is so gruff and abrasive and doesn't play well with others is because she was very traumatized by her awful bastard of a father. But the thing that complicates matters is that she kind of knows his purpose was good at its foundation. Ulysses was horrible, but he was hunting monsters and he was saving people by doing that. And even though she didn't really want to, Elsa has now been molded into another person who is capable of that skill. So she keeps doing it. She keeps fighting monsters because that's what she's good at and that is how she can help people, but obviously that carries a lot of baggage with it given her history. Like I said, she has suddenly been made very interesting. Now, rewind just a minute because I did also say that this was happening during the Secret Wars event, at which time canon was completely optional. Anything new from this event could be written off going forward as some manipulation by Doom or a side effect of the reality warping. But thank God, writers at Marvel going forward acknowledged that this origin for Elsa is objectively the best one she's ever had. And so, as far as I can tell, her history presented in Secret Wars has been accepted as her canon one going forward in the main universe. So now, like 25 minutes into the video, we finally have Elsa's real origin. The first Bloodstone comic from 2001 has kind of just been entirely dismissed without really acknowledging it, and the basis of the character that was written in Next Wave has been taken and developed and turned into something that actually works as a protagonist going forward. That is great. We have a good status for Elsa. Unfortunately, we now reach a big mystery, one of the larger mysteries I have run into on this channel. It's actually a two-part problem, and I've had to do more research on this specific issue than a lot of other things I've covered. Ultimately, I think the next part of Elsa Bloodstone's history is a real, legitimate continuity error that has just never been officially addressed, but I'm going to do my best to make heads or tails of it. Up until this point, Elsa's powers have come primarily from her chunk of the Bloodstone. Sometimes the comic will say that she has powers just from being Ulysses' daughter and that the magic has passed down genetically, but usually it's because of that little red crystal that she wears around her neck. She took this Bloodstone from her father when he lost his powers and crumbled to dust, kind of like in the original canon, and it gives her the same abilities. These powers are mostly generic: increased strength, speed, durability, etc. Honestly, they are less active superpowers and more the comic's plot device hand-wavy explanation for how she can keep up with other superhumans and giant monsters. Oh, also, it does function as a protective spell against monster-based infection or corruption. Elsa cannot be turned into a zombie, she's immune to vampire bites. In some cases, if a vampire bites her, their own vampirism would be cured. It's not relevant a lot of the time, but it is worth mentioning. This is still where her powers come from in the Marvel Zombies book. Even in the Battle World shifted canon, she is still wearing the Bloodstone around her neck. You can see it very clearly. But who is she fighting in this page? Well, that is a Bloodstone-powered zombie version of her father. Remember how I said in Battle World there would be different variants of the same character running around on the same planet? I didn't bring that up for no reason. It is very important in this book that because of the universe convergence, there are multiple Bloodstones around, and this zombie Ulysses has been collecting all of them and amassing them into something that he can use to keep himself alive. In the final confrontation between these monster hunters, Elsa's zombie dad steals her Bloodstone, adding it to his collection, and then bites off Elsa's right hand. This leaves her completely vulnerable to the zombie infection going around, and she begins to turn. All is not lost, though, thanks to the intervention of a child version of Elsa, also around for this comic, who shoots Ulysses and dislodges some of his Bloodstones. Elsa is able to collect a bunch of these before she's too far gone, and using her connection to the stones, molds them into a Bloodstone hand, which she then channels magic through to cure the zombie Ulysses and try to bring him back to normal. This is the end of the book. She cures her father instead of killing him, not choosing to continue his cycle of violence, and then they walk off into the wilderness. It's a very nice ending, but it is her last appearance in not just this book, but Secret Wars as a whole. The next book Elsa appears in would be in the main continuity. But she still has a Bloodstone hand. This shouldn't happen. All the storylines that happened on Battleworld were unwritten and restored more or less to normal when the multiverse was restructured. And yet, despite that, here's Elsa at the end of Battleworld Zombies with a Bloodstone glowing in the center of her right palm, and here she is in the 2016 comic A-Force, where she still has that. This is completely unambiguous. There's no question that's what's going on. She explicitly refers to this as her Bloodstone hand, and now has gained the ability to shoot magic rays out of it, which is admittedly pretty cool. Plus, if you need more evidence, she doesn't wear the Bloodstone choker anymore. The source of her power has completely moved. Here's where things get extra weird. I could easily write this off, right? Secret Wars did change some things. It was sort of a retcon event, so if they wanted to use this book as a way to upgrade Elsa's powers and then just hand wave it away, okay, fine, whatever. Except, Elsa specifically references the events of Zombies Battleworld. When asked by Nico Minoru how she lost her hand, Elsa simply replies, "My dad ripped off my first hand." That is what happened in Zombies Battleworld, and there's never been another comic in which that happens. Plus, there's not really been an opportunity for it to happen. In every other continuity before and since this, Ulysses has been dead for a very long time. The only encounter Elsa has had with him is the zombie version on Battleworld, which by all accounts she should not be able to remember because that was reality warped out of history. When I first read this, I had to do a double take, but then I was quick to dismiss it as, yeah, that was just a continuity error. Kind of funny that they let something like that slide, but whatever. This is a cool status quo for her once again. I like Elsa having a magic laser hand, so I'm not going to nitpick it. I did, however, bring it up casually to some of my friends who are also big into comic books, and they proposed a theory. And what a rabbit hole that theory was. Since we are deep in the conspiracy weeds and I don't have anything better to do, let's go back to NEXTWAAAAAAAVEEEEEE, the comic that, as I have mentioned a couple of times at this point, really established Elsa Bloodstone as the character she is today. We all know by now that NEXTWAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA explanation for why that is the case. In Captain America and the Mighty Avengers, written by Al Ewing, I did like one video without mentioning him, but now he's back in the fold, Monica Rambeau is an important character, and she and several other Avengers are dealing with a Beyonder. If you've seen my cosmology video, then you know what the Beyonders are, but for anyone who doesn't, there are a lot of Beyonders, not just the iconic one, and they run the range in morality and predictability. This particular Beyonder, referred to as the Debaser unit, was chaotic evil to say the least. What this comic does, admittedly very quickly, it's not a major plot point, but it does happen, is establish that NEXTWAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA warp. The reason that canon was completely ignored in this comic in favor of weird, chaotic nonsense is that this world was the creation of this debaser Beyonder. Basically, a chaotic evil god plucked 5 heroes that he liked out of the main universe, sent them into another universe where everything was weird and strange and didn't make sense, and then just watched what happened, presumably eating whatever the Beyonder equivalent of popcorn was. He tormented them in there for a year. And that's NEXTWAAAAAAAVEEEEEE. That is the canon of NEXTWAAAAAAAAAAAA. A bunch of main universe characters just get sent to this weird chaos hell. Was that the intent when Next Wave was written? No, it absolutely wasn't, but it is a good way to explain the parody nonsense of it all. Here's where we pull out the Pepe Sylvia conspiracy board. It has been since established in a recent Monica Rambeau book that Monica is immune to reality warping. She has been thrown through so many chaotic events that she remains in her current state even when the world changes around her. That was a big focus of that storyline. The crackpot theory my friend Luna presented to me is that one of the reasons Monica Rambeau is immune to reality warping is because of the Next Wave incident. She had her whole life altered by Beyonder and she was able to somehow escape it. And if that's the case, then it could extend to other members of Next Wave as well, like Elsa Bloodstone. This means that Elsa might just not change when the world around her does. When the world was altered into Battleworld, she kept her original history, which is why the Ulysses backstory about her getting abused is still canon. And then when her hand got ripped off, that persisted through the restructuring of the multiverse because that was a reality warp as well. So now she just has the Bloodstone hand in main continuity. Has any of this ever been explicitly stated? No. Absolutely not. Elsa herself has never brought anything like this up. However, I don't actually think that's a point against the theory, because if you've read comics with Elsa Bloodstone in them, you know it's very in character for her to just not care about this. Elsa Bloodstone is canonically forgetful, antisocial, and very focused on her work. So if she's immune to reality warping in some way, I genuinely don't think that would be a thing she'd bring up in casual conversation. She would just take it in stride as, yeah, this is another one of my cool powers. Isn't that great? Let's go kill some monsters now. Now, being real for a second, do I think that this is actually the intent for Elsa? I mean, no. As things stand right now, it's absolutely not. Her keeping the Bloodstone hand, definitely just a continuity error that they never bothered fixing. But with the canon of Next Wave and how all that worked out, this is going to be my headcanon going forward. I think Elsa Bloodstone is immune to reality warping. Maybe that'll get its way into a comic at some point in the future, I don't know, but until it's proven otherwise, there's evidence, so I'm going to believe it. Okay, everyone, hold on for just a second. I'm cutting in very late in the production process here, which is why there's no music on this part, because as I was pulling my comic book panels for this video, I noticed something else, and you'll see why I had to stop and bring it up. In issue 3 of the 2024 comic Blood Hunters, Elsa and a bunch of other characters are affected by a reality warper. We don't know exactly what he's doing, it kind of looks like he's just hurting them, but this panel does explicitly say that he warps reality, so it is that in one way or another. I thought for a second that this was going to ruin the theory, because Elsa is clearly being harmed by the reality warper. But then I went to the next page, and what do you know? Guess which one of these multiple superheroes tanks the reality warp enough to disrupt the monster's attack? It's Elsa. She gets hit by this for one panel and then blasts him out of it. So now, we do have solid on-page evidence of Elsa being decently resistant to reality warping, apparently more so than multiple magic characters, because Dagger and Hallows' Eve are also on this page, and Elsa shakes it faster than they do. I still don't think that this is like the active intent from Marvel at an editorial level, but it is crazy that we have so much piling evidence for it, so the longer I work on this video, I am believing it more and more. Anyway, now back to your regularly scheduled programming. So now that tangent is done. It was a kind of long one, but one that I think was worth talking about because, wow, what a weird little mystery. And fortunately, that allowed me to kill two birds with one stone, kill two birds with one bloodstone, whatever, because I kind of also talked about her powers in that section. Just to lay it out plainly all at once, Elsa has a magic rock that enhances her physical capabilities, and now, after the Secret Wars nonsense, it is embedded directly in her hand so she can use it to shoot magical energy beams and also, on occasion, do other magical things as necessary. She has been shown using the Bloodstone to heal people, etc. What a journey it has been to get to this point. I never thought this video was going to be as complicated as it ended up being when I started researching, but whatever, that's how it goes every single time. Fortunately for my sanity in explaining all this, as I continue back on Elsa's canon timeline, things are going to simplify. Since Secret Wars, Elsa Bloodstone has been a far better character. Now that she has backstory and motivation and actual conflict to her personality, she can be used in a lot more storylines as a more important figure, but her role within the Marvel Universe is much the same as it was. Elsa Bloodstone is still a monster hunter, and the vast majority of stories involving her are going to be ones where the heroes have to deal with monsters. But since Elsa has more of her own stuff going on, she does more than just pop in for an issue or two and has actually been a main character in several different comics. After A-Force, Elsa went on to be the mentor and sort of crisis response babysitter for Kei Kawade, otherwise known as Kid Kaiju, an 11-year-old boy who can summon any giant monster he wants just by drawing it. I actually did a whole video on him on this channel already if you want to learn more about that very cool character. She was also briefly part of a Midnight Suns team during the Damnation event. This group was a bunch of psychopaths assembled by Wong to save Doctor Strange when he was kidnapped by Mephisto, and the roster was chosen specifically because Wong was looking for crazy people who wouldn't be too against throwing themselves into the line of fire for this. Elsa was on that list. Probably her most significant appearance since Secret Wars was in the Deadpool run of 2019, colloquially known as King Deadpool, where Deadpool becomes the king of Staten Island. Oh, and also Staten Island is overrun by monsters. This book is a delight, even for me who is not really a Deadpool guy. Staten Island is taken over by a society of monsters who have laid some sort of claim to it, and Wade is hired to assassinate the monster's king. He does so, and then learns that by right of the monster ways, he becomes king since he has slain the old one. And so now, Deadpool rules over a society of monsters, which he doesn't really want to do, but also he likes being king because he's Deadpool, and as you can imagine, chaos ensues. Elsa becomes his sort of right-hand woman to keep the monsters in check, which leads to a bunch of great character moments for her, as the monsters of Staten Island don't actually want to go on rampages, they just want to lead regular lives in a society where they're not going to be tormented. So Elsa has to confront whether she should kill all monsters or leave the ones that seem innocent alive. It's very good, and also, her and Deadpool have a very short-lived romance, though the comic cuts off before it really goes anywhere. For the Marvel Rivals fans watching, which I'm sure given the topic and the timing of it is a lot of you, King Deadpool is also one of the first comics to heavily feature Jeff the Landshark and is where a lot of his most iconic bits come from, so check this one out, you'll probably like it quite a bit. After King Deadpool, Elsa has continued bouncing around to fitting storylines within the Marvel Universe. She was part of the very cool Black Knight Curse of the Ebony Blade miniseries, and then the admittedly less cool Blood Hunters, which spun out of the vampire-centric Blood Hunt event. If you're picking one of these two to read, go with Black Knight. Blood Hunters is not very good, and Elsa is just kind of more murdery and violent than usual. It's really weird, but she does get a vampire cat in that one, so that's cute. Now, the video's almost done, because Elsa, despite some of the early confusion, is a relatively simple character. But before we conclude, there is one more segment, I'll call it, that I have to cover. See, Elsa Bloodstone is not Ulysses Bloodstone's only kid. Elsa has two siblings, a brother and a sister, and both of them have their own weird magic going on and their own awful traumas at the hands of their father. Her younger brother is named Cullen Bloodstone, and he is a straight-up villain. Cullen was also trained by Ulysses, raised in the monster hunting ways, and in a similar training exercise to Elsa, on his 10th birthday, he was taken by his father to an alternate dimension called the Black Realm of Klimtor. As a rite of passage, so to speak, Ulysses then abandoned his son there to see if he could survive the night, and he planned on returning in the morning. And by pure coincidence, that night was when Ulysses was killed. This left Cullen Bloodstone trapped in this realm of monsters for over 2 years, and since Ulysses had a habit of keeping all of his operations secret, he had told everyone else that he had sent Cullen to boarding school, so nobody looked for him and he had to find his way out on his own. He was eventually able to return, but changed for the worse, both mentally and physically. Obviously, as is a pattern for the Bloodstone kids, he was extremely traumatized, but perhaps more importantly, he also had his soul forcibly bonded to a demon. Cullen was attacked by an other-dimensional entity called the Glartrox and entered into a symbiotic relationship with it. So now, Cullen transforms into the Glartrox whenever he is angry, and then just goes on a wild rampage. I do love this as a character beat. It's an obvious contrast, but one that works. They're both kids of a monster hunter, but Elsa became a monster hunter, and Cullen became a monster. He has not appeared in nearly as many comics as his sister, though. He first appeared in the Hunger Games like Avengers Arena, and then scattered appearances here and there. More recently, though, he's actually been cured of his possession by the Glartrox, and that is because of the third Bloodstone sibling. The last kid was revealed in the Death of Doctor Strange event, in which, I don't think I have to tell you what happens, the title makes it pretty clear. That event led to a bunch of Doctor Strange's protections and spells that were holding back weird magic things breaking down on his death. Counter to what the MCU says, a dead man's spell in the comics is not unbreakable, and they actually break pretty easily. One of these broken protections led to Lyra Bloodstone returning from her interdimensional exile. She is, by technicality, the oldest Bloodstone sibling, but she appears younger. The reason that she's older is because she was born 10,000 years ago in the early days of Ulysses Bloodstone's adventures. She worked with him a little bit more willingly than the other kids do, but Ulysses, ever practical, did not care, and ended up using his daughter as sacrificial material to bind an ancient god named Krakan the Jailer. By sending Lyra and another mystical crystal called the Null Gem into an outer dimensional void, Ulysses defeated Krakan at great cost, but he is not the type to care. This exile was then enforced by whoever held the role of Sorcerer Supreme, and so when that role was left vacant for long enough, Lyra returned to Earth, where she functions as an anti-magic character. The Null Gem she was exiled with is a counter to the Blood Gem, and can absorb magical energies into it, which she eats to sustain herself. I'm realizing this for the first time literally as I record these lines, but to anyone who's played Baldur's Gate 3, she's Gale. She's just Gale from BG3. She's bonded to an ancient magic thing and has to consume magic to sustain herself. It's actually kind of wild how close the two are. Now, Lyra is not evil despite having a kind of destructive power. She's not heroic either. She seems to occupy a neutral space. And I say seems to because she has appeared in one comic, that being the Death of Doctor Strange tie-in in 2022, and has not been acknowledged since then, so I have no idea what she's doing. Now, with the siblings covered, we can get back to Elsa herself and wrap things up pretty quickly. It's not like Elsa isn't getting comics. Actually, she's having a great couple of years, being in more comics than I think she's ever been in before. Blood Hunters was just a couple of months ago. She was also a main character in the Werewolf by Night Red Band series, where she teamed up with Jack Russell again. Hell, she was in an X-Men comic 2 days before I recorded this. And then, of course, which is unsurprisingly the reason I'm making this video now, she is the newest character in Marvel Rivals. Now, I am releasing this video on the day she releases in-game, which means I have to record it in advance, and therefore I have not played her yet, and I don't know exactly what her abilities are going to be. I can say for sure, though, that I do love her design. They went with the more medieval style look, not one that we've seen in the comics, but one that I think fits her vibe and the Rivals aesthetic both. I was really surprised, pleasantly so, when I saw Elsa get announced for the Rivals roster. I never thought we would see her in something more mainstream like that. I mean, yeah, sure, she has technically been in the MCU, but only in the Werewolf by Night special presentation, which, not knocking that at all, it's very good, very B-movie themed and stylized, but definitely, for the MCU, the least mainstream that it goes. Her inclusion in the game will likely lead to a boost in popularity, though, and that will likely lead to more comic appearances for her. And while I can't be sure exactly what they're going to be, I have a pretty good idea. They're probably going to be about Elsa Bloodstone fighting monsters. Because that's the thing about Elsa Bloodstone at the end of the day. She is a simple character. Yes, I went on the whole weird multiverse continuity tangent in the middle of this video, but that's because that is very specifically my job. I'm the guy who's supposed to dig up all the weirdness. If you just want to appreciate Elsa Bloodstone, you can appreciate her as a monster hunter, and that's all you need to do. Elsa Bloodstone is an extremely British, tea-loving, swear-slinging monster hunter with a billion guns and a cool magic rock. And if you've read one comic with her and gotten a sense of her vibe, you basically have a sense of her vibe in everything. In a complicated, interconnected universe like Marvel, where popular characters have become so many different things over the decades, it's kind of refreshing to see Elsa be so consistent in her characterization. Even if the nature of her origin changes, you know exactly what vibe a comic is going to have when Elsa Bloodstone shows up. She is a monster hunter, she hunts monsters, and that's all you need. Does this simplicity make her a bad character? No, not at all. She provides an excellent contrast. Like I said right in the intro of this video, sometimes there's not a mastermind or a complicated evil plan. Sometimes the problem is a big monster and you need somebody to shoot it. Elsa is the one you call to get that done. No more, but no less, and that makes her pretty cool. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I do hope you enjoyed. Again, I am having to record this video before Elsa comes out in the game to get it out on time, so I can't say for sure how this version is going to stack up with the comics one, but NetEase is also very, very good about respecting the source material in their adaptations, so I bet she'll be close enough for this video to be relevant. Quick announcements and plugs and the like, I have a Patreon. If you go and check that out, you can find early and ad-free access to all of my videos, as well as an exclusive video every month. My username there is the exact same as it is here. There's also a link to that in the video description and on my channel page. It's very easy to find, and extra double thank you to everyone who already supports me over there. It really does help me keep making these videos for you guys. Shout out also to Ruben Perez, the artist I work with on these videos. He drew the character you've been watching talk at you for the last 45 minutes or so. Go check out his work if you have a chance. And personally, now that I'm done with this video, I'm just gonna sit back and patiently wait to see if Marvel canonizes my friends and I's wild theory about Elsa being immune to reality warping. It would be crazy, but you can have that one for free, Marvel. I do think it is on brand for her.